James Gunn is officially on fraud watch at the DCU. I hate to say it because honestly, I'm a fan of a lot of James Gunn's projects, whether that's in Marvel or even at DC. This is coming off the back of just a handful of cancellations and news about overhauls on projects. We just got word today that The Waller Show and Paradise Lost are both dead at HBO. We got news the other day that the Booster Gold show was canceled. David Jenkins himself announced that he wasn't moving forward with the project, or at least his version wasn't moving forwards. But then it came out that they're just completely overhauling the creative team. It feels like ever since the original Gods and Monsters announcement, everything in the DCU has either not come to fruition or has been moved around or new things have been thrown into the mix. And honestly, I think it's all just becoming really confusing. I think that the DCU on paper had a really great plan to map out their universe and start world building in like every sector of that universe. Whether you are doing it all the way in space with lanterns, you're doing it on Earth and in space with Superman. Even Supergirl kind of was hopefully going to give us more of a backstory to Krypton. But it feels like because of all of the moving things around and cancellations and new projects being thrown in and then even canceled at times, everything's just all over the place. And they haven't really landed the plane yet on building out their universe. Everything is supposed to feel more connected than the MCU, and it just has not happened that way. I do just want to take a look back at the original Gods and Monsters plan that James Gunn announced, and I want to go through that and talk about what has happened with each project since the announcement. We did get Creature Commandos, and we got Superman. Honestly, it's a miracle that we got Superman. I enjoyed that movie thoroughly. I think it is a great Superman movie. But since that moment, it feels like everything has just been a disaster in a way. I'm hopeful for projects like Lanterns, which is coming out next week, and I'm hopeful for Clayface to be good and at least profitable for the DCU. But you have this random inclusion of a Sergeant Rock movie that ultimately ends up being canceled, and it's just like, what are we even doing? We're looking forwards to a Jimmy Olsen and Gorilla Grodd show, which just feels kind of out of place right now. This feels like maybe not the time for this when we haven't even established a Batman or a Wonder Woman in this universe yet. Moving forwards, Waller is the next project that was supposed to come out after Superman. That has officially been canceled. It was delayed indefinitely, and we just kept being told that, yes, this is still going to happen. This is still going to happen, have its own show. But it's just dead now. And that leads us right into the Authority project, which was going to be a movie and then a TV show. And that's just dead too. So that's two projects out of your first four that are just never going to happen. After that was supposed to be the Booster Gold show. And given that that's been delayed and now ultimately there's going to be a new creative team involved, that who knows when that's going to happen. After that, we're finally supposed to get The Brave and the Bold, which introduces our DCU Batman. And I just feel like that's so far away too now because we're still waiting to wrap up the Matt Reeves trilogy. That was delayed for so long that it's also seemingly delaying the DCU Batman. Things like Lanterns and Supergirl were pushed up. Lanterns, I'm still hopeful for, and Supergirl, honestly, was just a flop, in my opinion. I think Peacemaker Season 2 was a flop, and Creature Commandos was kind of hit and miss, mostly a flop, though. So I just don't know if we're even still setting up the same initial big idea that we were supposed to be setting up in the DCU. It doesn't even matter getting into Paradise Lost because that's dead now too. Who knows when Swamp Thing is going to happen. That has James Mangold attached to it, and I'd have to imagine that a bigger auteur director like James Mangold just doesn't have time to not be working on stuff and have this pushed off forever. The new direction that we seem to be moving in is just building towards Man of Tomorrow. Superman was successful enough where I guess we're just going to hinge the entire franchise on that guy. And that's not a terrible idea, but this just isn't at all what we were promised. And now we kind of just have to wait and see if Man of Tomorrow is going to be the film that we all want it to be, that we expect it to be. I think it's also not great that it's kind of being forced in this position to save the DCU in a way this early on. And I don't know. For me personally, I just don't like the idea of promising something and then just ultimately failing on it one way or another from a studio. I'm also worried for the idea of James Gunn mentioning that in all of movies, TV, and video games, we would have synchronicity between voice actors and actors who are portraying these characters. I was maybe just like mindlessly hopeful to that for a long time, but given that we can't even get the original slate of projects released or greenlit beyond just like, we can't even get scripts for half of these shows and movies, so it's like I don't know what I can trust anymore. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I don't know what is going to happen with the DCU. It's honestly all really up in the air right now, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm still hopeful for projects like Green Lantern, like Clayface, and honestly, I'm hopeful for Man of Tomorrow, but I just think that we're moving in a completely different direction than we were originally. And honestly, I think, for as crazy as it is to say, like, Marvel's really back in the driver's seat with this, competing against DC. We have Marvel coming off of like pretty good movies all in all. Like Thunderbolts, a bit underwhelming but pretty good. Fantastic Four, I thought was really great. We have Spider-Man Brand New Day, which I thought was amazing. And, whether or not Avengers Doomsday ends up being good or bad or a mess, it's going to make $1 billion most likely. And the DCU had such a chance to like kick Marvel while they were down, but at this point that's just gone. Marvel got off their back and started punching back, and the DCU has just floundered and fumbled opportunities. Like I said, I thought Superman was great, but ever since that moment, it's just been a roller coaster and a fuck story. Sorry if this video is all over the place, but this is just a rant, and honestly, I don't know what to think with James Gunn anymore as one of the co-heads of DC. I think that he is a really good director. I think that he's capable of making really great projects, albeit that he does get attached to some of the same character archetypes and same story archetypes. I think there's an ability for him to take it to the next level and really just become something amazing in the comic book space. Like, he's done so much great stuff, but it's been Guardians, it's been Peacemaker Season 1, it's been Superman, and, they all unfortunately do kind of follow that found family story one way or another. And I would just like to see him evolve, and it's crazy that he's now in the head position of the DC. Obviously, he did help write some of the most renowned MCU stories, but it just seems like he's spread too thin at this point. I loved all the ideas on paper. Synchronicity of actors between games, TV shows, and movies. I like the idea of giving directors their own voice in projects, which is something that Marvel has not been known to do. Even when it comes to something like Sam Raimi and Multiverse of Madness, there was studio interference. Overall, though, I just don't feel like any of these promises are really being capitalized on, and I don't know. We'll have to see when Clayface comes out, and we'll have to see if Lanterns can actually be as good as the trailers make it seem to be. I don't really know what we're building to anymore. Like, of course, we're going towards Brainiac, and that's going to be our first big bad of the DCU, but there's also just been such shit like Peacemaker where it's like, what even is the point of this? Again, sorry if this is just so all over the place. This is just me ranting about James Gunn kind of being a liar or being on fraud watch at this point at the DCU. This is not some, bring back the Snyderverse cultist video or anything like that, but I think I'm, well in my right to kind of question what's going on at DC Studios at this point. All of this just to probably like Lanterns and like Clayface and like Man of Tomorrow and kind of be back on the train, but, it's crazy to see so many of these projects that we were promised canceled or delayed indefinitely. yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts. Let me know what you guys are thinking about the DC studios in the comments down below. Check out our Invincible Rewatch podcast. We've been rewatching all of Invincible. We are midway through season 2 right now. Also, check out Jack's Back Rooms video. If you guys were a fan of the Back Rooms movie, Jack had some thoughts on that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Subscribe to Cape Critiquers. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.